Good morning, Boker Tov, Shabbat Shalom. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining us here at Temple Sinai. Now, I must admit, this is kind of a strange feeling. This morning, it's just me here in our 501 chapel. The cantor and I have decided that for now, as we try to practice good role modeling and social distancing, that we're going to kind of take turns leading our Shabbat services. So for those of you who were tuning in, looking forward to hear from Cantor Coleman, I know you're disappointed, know that I would be too. But we're going to join together this morning as we continue our observance of this Sabbath day. Again, I'm so glad that you could be with us. I especially want to thank Liv Kern, who is our live streaming maven, who has really made all of this happen. Again, we're fortunate here at Temple Sinai. We've been live streaming our services for a number of years. I'm not sure we ever envisioned using it for this purpose, meaning having an empty chapel and only having us congregate virtually. But that's the situation we find ourselves in now. We're going to try to continue this way for as long as we need to. But know that we're thinking of you. Believe me, I miss seeing you as I stand in this empty chapel. We miss you. We hope that you are taking care. Please stay well, stay safe, stay home, do what we need to do to get through this crisis. But we're going to put that not at the front of our minds right now. We're going to focus now for a little bit on Shabbat, on being together as we observe this day of rest. I thought we'd warm up a little bit. Bim, bam, bim, 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 bam, bim, 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 bam, bim, bam, bim, 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 bam, bim, 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 bam. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat, hope that you are choosing to sing along at home. I never like singing by myself, so I hope that you will join me. We begin now with our Shabbat morning service 2 in our prayer books. It begins on page page 287. On the digital, if you're following along with the digital from the Mishkan Tefillah for Shabbat only, it's page 169. It is not we alone who pray. All things pray. All things pour forth their souls. The heavens pray, the earth prays, every creature and every living thing prays. In all life there is longing. Creation itself is but a longing, a prayer to the Almighty. What are the clouds, the rising, the setting of the sun, the soft radiance of the moon, and the gentleness of the night? What are the flashes of the human mind and the storms of the human heart? They are all prayers, the outpouring of boundless longing for God. We continue on page 290 with the words of Matzovu. Page 291, we give thanks to God for our bodies. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher yatzar et ha'adam b'chokhmah, uvarava mekavim chalalim, galui b'yado lifnei chisech v'odecha, she'im yipateach echad mehem o yisatem echad mehem, yeh efshar lehitkayem v'la'amod lefanecha. Baruch atah Adonai rofechu b'asar u'mafli la'asot. Blessed are you, Adonai, source of our health and strength. Words especially appropriate at this time. We move from our bodies to our souls. The soul that you have given me, O God, is pure. You created and formed it, breathed it into me, and within me you sustain it. So long as I have breath, therefore, I will give thanks to you, my God and the God of all ages, source of all being, loving guide of every human spirit. Baruch atah Adonai, asher biyado nefesh kol chai, v'ruach kol b'sar ish. We continue on page 293 with our Nisim b'chol yom, our morning blessings, blessings for the everyday miracles in our lives. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan masech libina, la'avchin ben yom u'vein layla. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, bokei achivrim. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, zokef kefufim. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, rokah haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamechim mitzadei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, malbish alulim. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hanotin layaif koach. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hama'avir she'ena me'enai, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani b'tzelem Elohim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani ben chorin. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozer Yisrael b'gvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozer Yisrael b'tifara. There in the middle of page 296, we continue with our blessing for the study of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kedishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who makes us fully through commandments and who commands us to engage with the words of Torah. Adonai, our God, make the words of your Torah sweet to us and to the house of Israel, your people, that we and our children may be lovers of your name and students of your Torah. We praise you, O God, teacher of Torah, to our people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, hamlamed Torah le'amo Yisrael. Page 298. Elu devarim she'ein lahem shi'ur. These are the things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world while the principle remains in the world to come. We have our list of mitzvot, good for us now and later. They are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. For the study of Torah encompasses them all. Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam. On page 302, we find the words of Psalm 92, our psalm for the Sabbath day. Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat. Tov lehodot l'Adonai l'samer l'shimcha elyon. It is good to praise Adonai, to sing hymns to your name, O Most High, to proclaim your steadfast love at daybreak, your faithfulness each night, with a 10-string harp, or in this case, a 6-string guitar, with voice and lyre together. You have gladdened me by your deeds, Adonai. I shout for joy at your handiwork. How great are your works, Adonai, how very subtle your designs. A brute cannot know, a fool cannot understand this. The righteous bloom like a date palm. They thrive like a cedar in Lebanon. Planted in the house of Adonai, they flourish in the courts of our God. In old age, they still produce fruits. They are full of sap and freshness, attesting that Adonai is upright, my rock in whom there is no wrong. And then we turn to page 303. We're reminded, Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha od yehalu chasela. Happy are those who dwell in your house, O God. They forever praise you. Ashrei ha'am shekach lo, ashrei ha'am sh'Adonai lo'av. Happy the people who have it so. Happy the people whose God is Adonai. Even though we aren't assembling right now in our Beit Knesset, in our house of assembly, in our house of God, it's up to us to find ways to make our own homes mikdash ma'at, a small sanctuary unto itself. The words of Ashrei end, V'anachnu nevarach Yah, we praise you, we give thanks to you, me'atah ve'ad olam, now and always. In our word of praise, hallelujah, we praise you, God. And even in the midst of all of the craziness that is happening, I think it's important for us to find ways to create our own sanctuaries, to create our own sacred spaces, to take time to remember all of the blessings in our lives and to give thanks. So we're going to try this. Adonai, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, with thanksgiving. I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Let's try that again. Adonai, prepare me Continue on page 311. Yishtabach Shimcha La'ad Malkeinu. May you always be praised, great and holy God, our sovereign in heaven and on earth. We offer our devotion, open our hearts in acclamation. Praised are you, Adonai, crowned in adoration, God of praises, sovereign of wonders, delighting in song, eternal majesty. Baruch atah Adonai, El Melech Gadol Batishbachot, El Ha'odaot, Adon Haniflaot, Abocher B'shirei Zimra, Melech El Chei Ha'olamim. We turn to page 313, I think 195 in the digital version, and we rise for our call to worship the Baruch Hu. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer HaMeorot. Page 317. O God, inspiration and guide for all, you have spoken in 1,000 tongues for us to hear. In every land and every age, your children have heard you and imagined you in separate ways. And yet, O God, you are one, unifier of humanity. We give thanks for the sages and teachers who bring us understanding of your will. Gratefully, we recall the lawgivers and prophets, the psalmists and sages of Israel. And joyfully, we remember that from the dawn of Israel's life, we would turn to you and find purpose. May the teachings of our ancestors live on in our minds, and their passion for righteousness stir our hearts. Help us to live so that our daily conduct reveals the beauty and wisdom of your truth. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Amo Yisrael b'Ahava. Blessed are you, Adonai, who chooses the people of Israel b'Ahava, with love. With that sense of love, we join the words of the Shema. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתיכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Those words remind us to love Adonai your God with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children. Talk about them at work. Whether you are tired or you are rested, let them guide the work of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorway of your house or outside your gate. They are reminders to do all my mitzvot, so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai your God. I led you out of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai your God. Turn to page 204, and there we find the words of Micha Mocha, our song of freedom. Every time we sing Micha Mocha, we're taken back to that moment in our history when the waters of the Red Sea parted and we crossed on dry land. We looked back and said, wow, thank you, God, for all of the wonders and miracles in our life. So we join together in the words of Micha Mocha. We turn now to the Amidah, the middle section of our service, page 323 in our Mishkan Tefillah, or in the Mishkan Tefillah for Shabbat, the digital version, page 205. I invite you to rise and join with me. Adonai sefatai tiftach, ufiani tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu V'Imotzeinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, El Hagadol, HaGibor, VaHanorah, El אתה רב והושיע, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו, לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבולות, ומיתו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה על זה ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ, כבודו. אדיר, אדירנו, אדוני, אדוננו, מאדיר, שמך בכל הארץ, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו ומלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמענו, ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה. לטוב אדוני גדולך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, בשבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. L'dor v'ador, to all generations we will make known your greatness, to all eternity proclaim your holiness. Your praise, O God, shall never depart from our lips. Blessed are you, the Holy God. We may be seated. On page 329, we are reminded that those who keep Shabbat by calling it a delight will rejoice in your realm. We're reminded that on Shabbat we're supposed to be happy. And so we join with the words of Yismach. Yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'korei, onei Shabbat. Yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'korei, onei Shabbat. Mekadeshei shevi Shabbat, kulam yismeu v'yitangu mitvecha Shabbat. Yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'korei, onei Shabbat. Yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'korei, onei Shabbat. V'hashpir ratzita bo v'gila shel Shabbat, chemdad yamim, oto karat Shabbat. Yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'korei, onei Shabbat. Yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'korei, onei Shabbat. Zecher למעשה בראשית Shabbat. Zecher למעשה בראשית Shabbat. ישמחו במלאכתך, שומרי, שומרי, שומרי Shabbat וקורא עונג Shabbat. ישמחו במלאכתך, שומרי, שומרי, שומרי Shabbat וקורא עונג Shabbat. The meaning of Shabbat is to celebrate time rather than space. When these words were written, I don't think they had in mind our virtual services, my being in this space, your being in that space. But again, our focus is on time right now. 6 days a week, we live under the tyranny of things of space. On Shabbat, we try to become attuned to holiness and time. It is a day on which we are called upon to share in what is eternal in time, to turn from the results of creation to the mystery of creation, from the world of creation to the creation of the world. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu b'amachai Yisrael u'tefilatam ba'ahavat kabel u'tehila ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael amecha. On this Shabbat day, as you graciously receive our prayers, help us to hear your call. Grant us enough health to fulfill our duties and the compassion we need to attend to others. Teach us humility that we may perceive our own faults, and grant us the wisdom to be forgiving of others. Give us the courage to be true to our highest selves and the charity to see the best in those around us. Give us patience enough not to become discouraged, hope enough to overcome all fears for the future, and faith enough to know your presence. A source of blessing, look with favor upon us. May our offerings be acceptable to you. We praise you, Adonai, and alone we serve in reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, shodcha levadecha b'yirah na'avod. We continue with our prayer of thanksgiving. Modim anachnu lach, she'atah hu Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu le'olam va'ed. We give thanks to you, that you are Adonai, our God, the God of our ancestors, our God forever and ever. Tzur chayenu, the rock of our life. Magen yish'enu, our shield and protector. Atahu l'dor v'dor, thus you have been from generation to generation. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha l'chana el hotet. Blessed are you, Adonai, whose name is goodness, and who is worthy of all of our prayers of thanksgiving. On page 334, we continue with our prayer for peace. In the morning we sing Sim Shalom, as we ask God to grant us peace, goodness, blessing, grace, compassion, for us, for all Israel, and all the world. Sim Shalom, Tova Uvracha, Chen V'Chesed V'Rachamim V'Rachamim Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'al Kol Yisrael Amecha, Barcheinu Yosmeinu Kulanu Kecha, Ve'or Banecha, Ki Ve'or Banecha Natata Lanu, Adonai Eloheinu. Sim Shalom, Tova Uvracha, Chen V'Chesed V'Rachamim V'Rachamim Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'al Kol Yisrael Amecha, Torah Chaim Ve'ahavat Chesed, Ve'ahavat Chesed, U'Tzedakah U'Bracha, Ve'Rachamim Ve'Chaim Ve'Shalom. Sim Shalom, Tova U'Bracha, Chen V'Chesed V'Rachamim V'Rachamim Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'al Kol Yisrael Amecha, V'Tov Einecha Levarech Et Amecha Yisrael, V'chol Eit V'chol Shah B'Shlomecha. Sim Shalom, Tova Uvracha, Chen V'Chesed V'Rachamim V'Rachamim Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'al Kol Yisrael Amecha. Baruch atah Adonai, hamevarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom. Blessed are you, Adonai, who blesses your people Israel and all the world with the blessing of shalom, the blessing of peace. We take a moment now for our own silent prayers. Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom. Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom. Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom. Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. We come to the part of our service now where we turn to our prayers for healing, which can be found on page 371 or page 253 in the digital Mishkan Tefillah. I think that these prayers for healing are especially important right now as we gather at home. We think of all of the folks we know, family members, friends and neighbors, co-workers. We think of those we don't know here in our community, in our city, in our state, in our country, in Israel, around the world. Think of all those who are sick, all of those who are suffering from coronavirus, all of those who have family members who are suffering, all of those who are there to support them. Know that our prayers are with you. We pray for all those who could use a little healing. We pray for refuah shlema, complete and speedy recovery. For refuah nefesh, refuah guf, for renewal of body, soul, and mind. In particular, the prayers of our congregation go out, and I know that this is an incomplete list, but the prayers of our congregation go out especially on behalf of Jack Zoll, Michael Boda, Joan Tuckman, Judy Schwartzer, Jerry Rawson, Michael Maples, Ellen Lowenberg, Betsy Threefoot Caston, Wendy Good, Gina Allen. I'm going to pause here for a moment so that you can add the names of those who are on your mind, friends and family members, those who could use some healing. Mishaberach Motenu Motzinu Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel Leah Hu Yivarech et HaCholim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yimaleh Rachamim Aleihem Lahacha Limam Ularapotam Ulahachazikam Vayishlach Lahem Meira Refuah Shlema Min HaShamayim Refuat HaNefesh Refuat HaGuf Hashta V'Agala B'Zman Karev No More. Amen. We join together in our Mishaberach prayer for healing. Mishaberach Avotenu Mekor Averacha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing and We come now to our Torah service. This is the part of the service that I really wasn't sure how we were going to do this with my being here and your being at home. But I think it's important that the Torah is a part of our Shabbat observance. So I'm going to invite you to rise as we open the ark. Ki mitzion teitzei Torah, Ki mitzion teitzei Torah, ulevar Adonai liYerushalayim, Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah, Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah, le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato. And now we join with the people of Israel all over the globe as we say these words. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Gadol Shemo, Gadol Adonai Unerom Ema Shemo Yachtav. Lecha Adonai Hagitula ve'hagevura v'tiferet ve'hanetach ve'hahod kichol hashamayim u'va'aretz kichol hashamayim u'va'aretz Lecha Adonai hamamlacha ve'amid na'aseh lechol seated. Our Torah portion for this Shabbat, we begin the third of the 5 books of Moses, which means it's time for us to begin the book of Leviticus. We've been reading through the book of Exodus. We retold the story of how once we were slaves in Egypt and God rescued us, God redeemed us with an outstretched arm and a mighty hand, brought us to Mount Sinai. There we received God's teachings. When we committed ourselves, we entered into a holy covenant as we promised to fulfill God's laws. And then we built a tabernacle, a mishkan, an ohel moed, a place for us to come together there in the wilderness. And that's where we left off last week. In our Torah portion for this week, in Parashat Vayikra, we begin learning about the rules of sacrifices. God calls to Moses, says, explain, here's how these offerings are going to work. So the entire beginning of our Torah portion includes 5 different types of offerings. So I wanted to give us a taste of this week's Torah portion. I will try the Torah lesson. I'm going to do the first line. I'm going to expect at home you're doing the second line. Baruch hu et Adonai Hamorach. Thank you. Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch et Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch et Adonai noten ha'torah. Vayikra el Moshe. Vayidber Adonai elav. Me'ohel moed lemor. Daber b'nei Yisrael. V'amarta alehem Adam. Ki akriv bikem korban Adonai. Min ha'behema, min ha'bakar u'min ha'tzon, takrivu et korbanchem. Im olah korbano min ha'bakar, zachar tamim yakrivenu. El petach ohel moed, yakriv oto lirtzono lifnei Adonai. V'samach yado al rosh ha'olah, v'nirtzah lo l'chaper alav. ושחט את בן הבקר לפני אדוני, והקריבו בני אהרון הכהנים את הדם, וזרקו את הדם על המזבח סביב, אשר פתח אוהל מועד, והפשיט את העולה, וניתח אותה לנתחיה, ונתנו בני אהרון הכהן אש על המזבח, וערכו עצים על האש, וערכו בני אהרון הכהנים את הנתחים, את הראש ואת הפדר על העצים אשר על האש אשר על המזבח, וקרבו רעם ירחת המים, והקטיר הכהן את הכל המזבח עולה, איש ריח ניחוח לאדוני. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם אתה בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה. Amen. So God calls to Moses. Vayikra means and God called. God called to Moses and spoke to Moses there at the tent of meeting, saying, speak to the Israelite people and say to them, here come my rules. And again, at the beginning of Leviticus, we're going to read of 5 different types of offerings. The first is the olah, the burnt offering. When any of you presents an offering of cattle to the Eternal, you shall choose your offering from the herd or from the flock. If your offering is a burnt offering from the herd, you shall make your offering your korban, a male without blemish. You shall bring it to the entrance of the tent of meeting for acceptance in your behalf before the Eternal. It's your responsibility to move that cow right to the tent of meeting. Thank you. You shall lay a hand upon the head of the burnt offering, that it may be acceptable in your behalf, in expiation for you. And the bull shall be slaughtered before the Eternal, and Aaron's sons, the priests, shall offer the blood, dashing the blood against all the sides of the altar, which is at the entrance of the tent of meeting. So the priests are going to slaughter the animal, drain the blood, and then prepare the meat of the animal. The burnt offering shall be flayed and cut up into sections. The sons of Aaron, the priest, shall put fire on the altar, and then lay wood upon the fire, and Aaron's sons, the priest, shall lay at all the sections, with the head and the suet, on the wood that is on the fire upon the altar. Its entrails and legs shall be washed with water. The priest shall turn the whole into smoke on the altar as a burnt offering, an offering by fire, reach nichoach, a pleasing odor to the Eternal. So again, for this burnt offering, everyone would take a bull without blemish. You only brought the good stuff to God. You would bring it to the priest. The priest would take the animal, slaughter the animal, drain the blood, prepare the meat, prepare the altar, get the fire going, and then place all of the sections of the animal on the altar, which would go up into smoke into God, producing this reach nichoach, this pleasing odor to God. And this was how the people expressed. This is how they communicated, expressed their thanks, and connected with God. That's the key part of the concept of the korban, the offering. It was a place to approach God. It was a way to feel near or connected, close to God. And it was the priest's responsibility to help the people to make this connection. They would come all together as one people there at the tent of meeting, and that's where the offering would be presented to God. The second chapter refers to the mincha, or the grain offering. And then we read also the zevach shlamim, the offering of well-being, as well as the chatat and the asham, both the sin and guilt offerings, all of these being ways for the people to connect to God. Offerings were a very important means of communication between our ancestors and God. But you needed to have the priest, you needed to have that altar, that mishkan, and later the Beit HaMikdash, the Holy Temple. Today we no longer do sacrifices. We don't make offerings like this anymore. Instead, we offer the offerings of our hearts and our minds and our arms. We study, we pray, we worship, and we try to put that into action by fulfilling God's mitzvot, and doing acts of tzedakah, acts of righteousness and justice. These are the offerings that God demands of us. Even in the days of the prophets, they reminded the people that rituals were never meant just for the sake of doing ritual, but rather it's the intent behind it. It's putting yourself out there. It's by being actively involved in what you do. So our Haftorah portion for this week comes from the prophet Isaiah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nbiim tovim v'ratza b'divreihem hanemarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai abocher haTorah u'Moshe abdo u'Yisrael amo u'v'nevi'ei ha'emet v'tzedek. So Isaiah is speaking to the people, reading from chapter 43, beginning with verse 42, our Haftorah portion of the Parshat Vayikra. Again, is going to focus on these offerings. The people I formed for myself are meant to recount my praise, says God. Yet you have not called upon me, O Jacob, or wearied yourself for me, O Israel. You brought me no sheep for burnt offerings, nor honored me with your sacrifices. I did not burden you with meal offerings, nor weary you by demanding incense. You have not spent your coin to give me sweet cane, nor sated me with the fat of your sacrifices. Instead, you have burdened me with your sins and wearied me with your offenses. God says, you've stopped worshiping me altogether. You've stopped serving me. You've stopped following my commandments. You don't offer me anything, says God. I am the one who blots out your transgressions for my own sake. And your sins will I remember no more. All I ask you to do is follow my commandments, but you are not doing this. You are sinning. You are breaking my laws. Now, if you think I don't recall your merits, help me remember. Let us arrive at judgment. State your case and justify yourself. Your first ancestors sinned, and your leaders have rebelled against me. So I degraded the temple's chiefs, made Jacob an outcast, surrendered Israel to mockery. You have a history of not following my laws, but I've always found a way to forgive you, God says. Listen to me now, O Jacob, my servant, Israel, my chosen one. Again, an important concept. We are in a covenantal relationship with God. God chose us to serve God, to carry out God's commandments. We've been chosen to be a light unto the nation. God has given us these commandments to help us be the very best people that we can be and to help inspire others to do the same. Thus says the Eternal One, your Maker, who formed you from the womb and will help you. Have no fear, Jacob, my servant, Yeshurun, my chosen one. As I pour water on thirsty soil and streams on dry ground, so will I pour my spirit on your descendants, my blessing upon your offspring. They shall flourish amidst the grass, like willows by water courses. One shall say, I am the Eternal's, and take the name Jacob. Another shall write for the Eternal on his hand, and be known as Israel. Thus says the Eternal One, Israel's sovereign and Redeemer, the God of heaven's hosts. I am the first, I am the last. There is no God but me. Who is like me, God asks. God is reminding the people that God is waiting for them to do the right thing, to choose to take up this mantle of fulfilling God's commandments and living up to the covenants. However, there are those who make idols, the things they are so fond of, all of them not. They are themselves witnesses that their gods cannot see or think, and they shall be put to shame. There are people who make idols out of wood and metal and stone and are worshiping them. Isaiah tells the people, you got to stop. You got to return to worshiping the one and only God. Remember these things, O Jacob, verse 21, for you are my servant, O Israel. I formed you. You are my servant, O Israel. Do not forget about me. I've swept away your transgressions like a cloud, your sins like a thick cloud. Return to me, for I have redeemed you. Shout for joy, you heavens, for the Eternal has acted. Shout in triumph, you depths of the earth. Break out in joyful song, O hills, O forest, and all its trees. For the Eternal has redeemed Jacob and is glorified in Israel. We've made mistakes, but God is willing to forgive us. But we have to come back. We have to change our ways. We have to remember this covenantal relationship between us and God, and when we do, God is willing to clear out our transgressions, wipe clean our sins, so that we can start afresh and anew. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, tzur kol ha'olamim, tzadik b'chol ha'dorot, ha'el ha'ne'eman ha'omer v'oseh, ha'medaber v'mekayim, shekol dvarav emet v'tzedek, ha'torah v'ha'avodah v'ha'ani'im, v'yom ha'Shabbat hazeh, שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו לקדושה ולמנוחה, לכבוד ולתפארת, על הכל אדוני אלוהינו אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך, יתברך שמך בפי כל חי, תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. Before we continue with our service, it's important for us to turn our thoughts to our brothers and sisters in the land of Israel who are also facing this coronavirus crisis. Part of every service includes our prayers for Israel, as we remember we are all part of one people. Shalu Shalom Yerushalayim Yishlayo Halayich, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May those who love you prosper. Avinu Shabashamayim Sur Yisrael B'Goalo Barecha Medinat Yisrael Reshit Tzmichat Geulatenu. O Heavenly One, Protector and Redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love, spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there. Let us say, we turn now to our concluding prayers, page 586 in our Mishkan Tefillah, page 282 in the digital, and we rise. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'atei k'tula yosef reishi, shelo asan k'dui ha'aratzot, velo samanu v'shvachot ha'atama, shelo sam chalkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol ha'olam, v'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'ne'eman v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz, v'yom hahu yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo page 598 or page 294 on the digital. As we turn to the words of Kaddish, we think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, as we mourn the recent loss this week of Dr. Michael Berkey. We urge Lashim for Samuel Ted Alkus III, Beverly Kaplan, Joel Mish, Pearl Schreiber. We think of those who died of this season in years past, those whom we've taken into our hearts with our own, as we lovingly recall the yard site of Laz Aaron, Morris Barton, Frida Benowitz, Isidore Bograd, Esther Rubens Braun, Bernice Ray Brill, Louis S. Vizend, Harry Harris, Marie D. Slosshardt, Jimmy Hyman, Alice Levy Hiller, Henry S. Jacobs, Charles Kaufman Kahn, Charles Newman Kahn, Ruth Kern, Fanny Aaron Loeb Greider, Jules Lazar, Effie Aronson Lehman, Tilly Hausman Levy, Viola Lovendart, Josephine Mayer, Janet Mayer, Margaret Mostier, Melville Lee Myers, Louis Rosenbaum Jr., Donald Jesse Rosenfeld, Lucille Felsenthal Schlenker, Helena Sinai, Rachel Watsky, Dr. C. Herman Weinberg. Zichronam Livracha. May their memories be an everlasting blessing as we join together as one community in the words of Kadisha Tov. Yitzgadal v'yitzkadash Shnei Rabba, v'almat yivrach yeruteh, v'yamlich malchuteh. V'chayei chonim yomei chonim chayei t'chol beit Yisrael. V'agalav izman karev yimru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabban v'arach le'olam u'lamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtapach v'yitba'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal. Shmei t'kedusha rechu. Le'ela min kol berchatzah v'shiratah. Tishbachatah v'nechamata. Da'amiram v'yomah v'yimru. Yehei Shlomo Rabba min Shemayim v'chayim. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru. Amen. Oseh shalom v'bromam. Uyaseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru. Amen. May God who creates peace on high bring peace to us, to all Israel and all the world. As together we say, Amen. Please be seated. I want to thank everyone for joining us here on our live stream. Again, I want to thank Liv Kern for our technology maven who has made all of this happen. I hope that it has come out okay. A couple of reminders. First, I want to thank Tracy and Mike Dodd for the beautiful flowers that are gracing our bima. This was the Shabbat on which their daughter Lily was to become a bat mitzvah. Unfortunately, because of all of these circumstances, we are having to postpone a number of our simchas and celebrations, but we look forward to celebrating at a future date. Lily, we want you to know that we are very proud of you for all of your preparation and getting ready for this Shabbat. A few reminders today. Before services, we successfully had our first Torah study via Zoom online. Successful for most folks. There were some who were unable to log in. We'll work out all of the kinks. I have a feeling over the next few weeks we will unfortunately be getting very good at these chats at Zoom and Google Meets and Hangouts and all of those that help us to connect. Again, I think it's very important for us to find ways to connect. So we're going to try that again next week on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock, our Torah study. A reminder that tomorrow, Sunday, March 29th, we're going to try our first Sinai Connect, which will really be an open forum, an opportunity for us to come together online to see each other and to talk. So Kendra Coleman and I, and our Executive Director, Liz Yeager, our Director of Education, Avital Kadosh, Tracy Dodd, our President, will all be available online. We want to check in with everyone, see how you're doing. We want to talk about all the things that the temple is doing, as well as we'll talk about things that have been canceled. And we're going to listen to suggestions and ideas, and we'll just come together online for a little bit. So I hope that you'll join us tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. And then a reminder that the virtual Limud, again, we had to cancel last week's Limud Fest here in New Orleans, but there is a national e-Limud that takes place tomorrow beginning at 11 a.m. our time. Go to the website for more details. A reminder that all of our in-person activities, events, and programs here at Temple have been canceled for now, including this Wednesday was to be our special senior event that Sisterhood sponsors every year. Again, that has been postponed for now. Unfortunately, we've also had to cancel our congregational starim, our Passover Seder's, as we usually look forward to coming together to celebrate Passover. It's not going to happen this year. Everyone's going to be home celebrating Passover. Know that we are in the process of putting resources up on our website and making available in general to help you celebrate Passover at home. We'll be discussing that more in the week ahead. Again, I want to thank everyone for joining in with us. I thought that we would conclude our service this morning with an oldie but a goodie. When I think Saturday morning, I think especially of Ein Keloheinu. Anne Lowenberg, I don't know if you're following along at home, but we always think of you as we sing this. Page 626 in the back of Mishkan Tefillah, page 322 in the digital Mishkan Tefillah for Shabbat. I hope you'll join with me. Ein Keloheinu, Ein Adonenu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kemoshienu, Mich Eloheinu, Mich Adonenu, Mich Emalkeinu, Mich Kemoshienu, Notel Eloheinu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshiachenu. We'll conclude with Kiddush. If you have some wine or grape juice at home, I have a feeling that many people are enjoying a glass of wine before noon these days. Here it's a sip of wine or grape juice at 11:30. Our Shabbat morning Kiddush can be found on page 604, page 300 in the Mishkan Tefillah. We begin with words of V'shamru. V'shamru b'nei Israel Hashabat Lasod Hashabat L'Dorot Hamerim Olam. V'shamru b'nei Israel Hashabat Lasod Hashabat L'Dorot Hamerim Olam. V'niu b'nei Israel Oti le'olam. V'shamru b'nei Israel Hashabat Lasod Hashabat L'Dorot Hamerim Olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. V'shamru b'nei Israel Hashabat Lasod Hashabat L'Dorot Hamerim Olam. U'vayom hashvi'i shavat v'yinafash, shavat v'yinafash, shavat v'yinafash. V'shamru b'nei Israel Hashabat Lasod Hashabat L'Dorot Hamerim Olam. V'shamru b'nei Israel Hashabat Lasod Hashabat L'Dorot Hamerim Olam. Alkein be'rachmai yom haShabbat v'yikadshehu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei b'riah ga'afen. Amen. L'chaim, to life, to health and blessing. Shabbat Shalom. Thanks for joining us. Have a wonderful Shabbat, and I hope to see you all soon. Again, thanks for joining us. Please stay well, stay safe, stay home. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.